Welcome to Pro Practice, your guide to piano mastery. I'm Josh Wright, and today's episode is based on the Woodland Sketches, Opus 51, number 1, To a Wild Rose by Edward MacDowell. And this was composed in 1896, originally published with Breitkopf and Härtel. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And it's just a lovely little piece. I'll go ahead and actually just play through it to start this tutorial off. We're going to go over many different facets, how to develop a better touch, how to shape phrases, and how to have variety between phrases. I might throw in a few fingering suggestions here and there if something looks particularly troubling, but with this tutorial being so slow, the tempo of the piece being so slow, I think it'll be fairly obvious with the overhead camera what I'm doing with the fingering there. But if there's any complex stuff, I'll go ahead and clarify that. And just overall talk about some differences that you can make between sections as well. So without going into any more explanation, let me just go ahead and play this first. Maybe a little softer here. And I should start off by saying that you could totally take that a lot faster. Actually, a lot of the recordings that I listened to in preparation for this tutorial took this a lot faster. So they would take... which has its advantages as well. That's a lot easier to pace your dynamic contrast. For instance, this is a totally separate example, but everyone who plays the Rachmaninoff Opus 32 number 10, or not, sorry, I shouldn't say everyone. So many people that play it take this more brisk tempo. And on Sergei Babayan's recent recording, he takes it much slower. Which I was like, wow, this is a lot slower than I'm used to. But then when he got into the more complex stuff on that third page, it made so much sense. Not that this piece has all of that complexity in it, where it's going to be paced differently later on in the piece, but I do think that MacDowell's tempo indication with simple tenderness has a lot of ambiguity in it, a lot of freedom to choose. That sounds simple and tender to me. So does this. I just personally like this tempo. one thing that you want to avoid is to avoid any sort of lagging in your tempo. So if you start feeling smaller beats, and I would even say, like, if you feel 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, if the ands, the half beats, the off beats, start to feel like events unto themselves, I would definitely speed that tempo up. If you want to fill the entire measure as one unit, 1, 2, that would warrant a slightly faster tempo. But it's totally up to you. Okay, I just liked it slightly slower. So moving on, let's start this tutorial out with a little bit about touch. Okay, so one thing that we have to realize is that every piano is a little bit different. The hammer, the newness of the hammers are going to affect, or the velvetyness of the hammers, the material that the hammers are striking the strings, the quality of your instrument. Those are all going to affect touch. So if I'm on my other piano, which has really old beat up hammers because we've, banged on it for 8 years, that they really need to be replaced, I could put my soft pedal down and it would ring out a lot more than on this piano, which has fairly new hammers. And I can get that unbelievably soft touch. So I probably don't need to start with the soft pedal down, the far left pedal. That has a little more vibrancy. By the way, I have those mics in the piano turned down slightly so I don't distort that. So the balance of my voice in the piano is not quite what you would hear in this room. The piano's a little softer than what you'd hear in the room. So I'm just making my point even more evident with that, because you're probably saying, wow, he is really soft on that. So yeah, feel free to play out just a little bit more and just realize the piano condition will have an effect on whether you use that soft pedal or not. A lot of teachers are against using the una corda pedal, the far left pedal, often referred to as the soft pedal, as I've been referring to in this tutorial, because they say, oh, it's a crutch. You're just using it to bring down the volume. And that's not it at all. That's at least not what I'm alluding to at all. What the soft pedal allows you to do, as you scoot those hammers over, if you look, you'll probably see this on the overhead cam better than the side cam, but as I push that pedal down, it shifts it to the right. As I let it go, it shifts it back. Basically, I'm hitting 2 out of the 3 strings, but not only that, I'm going to be hitting a more velvety part of the hammer. So if you imagine this is your hammer, and if you imagine that these are the strings and this is the hammer, that hammer is going to be hitting those strings in the same place over and over and over again, thousands and thousands of times. Over time, imprints, and not a lot of time even, does this occur. In not a lot of time does this occur. It occurs pretty quickly. The hammers hitting those strings will cause imprints in that felt hammer, and the hammer becomes harder and harder and harder over time. That's why on really, really old pianos that haven't been voiced very well, it's very hard to play soft, and that's why on a brand new piano, it's so easy to play soft, because you're playing on this newer felt. So when you use the soft pedal, you're not only shifting it over, but you're probably, unless your piano is like regulated perfectly to hit those string markings on the hammer in the same place, you're probably going to be playing on a little bit more new felt that hasn't been beat to death in the same place over and over again. So keep that in mind as you make choices whether to use the soft pedal or not. Okay, so regarding touch, I like to pull back on the keys slightly. And then the second time where he marks pianissimo, I'll put my soft pedal down. And it just makes it that much more colorful. When you do use soft pedal, you want to use even more weight and speed on that top note. So that you voice that out. But while we're getting started, let's just take those bottom notes and just stroke them back. A lot of people say, well, why are you causing yourself this extra work by pulling back. What this does is it elongates the attack on the key, and it allows me to have more control. Basically, if I push that key down, I'm only, traveling maybe I don't know, a half an inch or a centimeter or two, a very, very small distance. But when I pull back this way, I can elongate that to a full inch or several centimeters. That way, I'm not just like, oh, I hope that this comes out, and then accidentally accenting that. I can't even tell you how many times I've done that, how many times I've seen students do that, like the beginning of the Chopin Nocturne in D flat. If you pull back there, it gives you a lot more control. Whereas if you just go for it, I've accented that so many times. So just be aware of that. That's something that you can use to help you. Okay, now within the right hand, it's a little